The war in Ukraine has entered its fourth year, and yet it shows no sign of slowing down. If anything, the violence is intensifying, the alliances are hardening, and the consequences are spreading far beyond the battlefields of Eastern Europe. In the latest escalation, Russian forces mounted a devastating attack on the southeastern Ukrainian city of Zaporizhzhia. The assault killed at least one person and injured 13 more, according to the city's mayor. The overnight rocket barrage set off multiple fires, tearing through residential neighborhoods. Families were jolted awake by explosions, flames consumed entire blocks, and the cries of wounded children echoed through the night. Among the injured were 2 young children, a tragic reminder of the human toll of this relentless war. Officials say this strike was not just another attack. It was part of Russia's ongoing campaign to grind Ukraine into submission, a campaign now stretching into its 42nd month. And yet, as Ukrainian rescuers clear the rubble and families bury their dead, another question hangs heavily in the air. Who is fueling Russia's ability to keep fighting? There is growing evidence that Russia's war machine is being sustained by help from abroad, specifically from Chinese companies. On September 7th, Russia launched its largest combined drone and missile assault since the invasion began. In just one day, Moscow fired an astonishing 823 projectiles into Ukraine. Many of these weapons, investigators have found, were built using components sourced from Chinese suppliers. And this, despite sweeping Western sanctions, meant to choke off Moscow's access to technology and materials. China, far from isolating Russia, has instead deepened its partnership. Earlier this month, President Xi Jinping welcomed Vladimir Putin to Beijing for a high-profile military parade commemorating the end of World War II. Standing side by side, the two leaders projected unity, and Xi delivered a message with unmistakable symbolism. He declared that their country's relationship had withstood the test of changing global circumstances, building a lasting friendship and comprehensive strategic cooperation, a model of win-win relations between major powers. For Russia, this friendship is more than symbolic. It is a lifeline. China now purchases nearly half of Russia's oil exports, keeping Moscow's economy afloat despite Western embargoes. In return, Beijing provides everything from cars to advanced electronics. But Ukraine's intelligence agency says China's support goes further still. They allege that Beijing permits Chinese firms to export dual-use goods, items with both civilian and military purposes. Gunpowder, specialized chemicals, industrial machinery, and electronic components are among the materials reportedly flowing into at least 20 Russian defense factories. A recent investigation by Britain's Daily Telegraph uncovered 97 Chinese suppliers providing key parts for Russian drones. These include aircraft engines, microchips, metal alloys, optical lenses, and even carbon fiber yarn. Reuters has separately reported that Chinese-made drone engines are being covertly shipped to Russia through shell companies before ending up in the hands of a state-owned weapons manufacturer. Western governments have taken notice. Both the United States and the European Union have repeatedly imposed sanctions on firms in third countries, including China, accused of enabling Russia's war effort. Beijing, for its part, insists it enforces strict export controls and maintains neutrality. But for Ukrainian investigators combing through the wreckage of downed drones, the story is written clearly in the components. Chinese-made technology is helping to fuel the Kremlin's arsenal. To understand why, it is important to look at the broader history of China-Russia relations. Resident China analyst Clifford Cunan explains that this is one of the world's most complex geopolitical relationships. Back in 1949, Cunan recalls, Mao Zedong's very first foreign trip was to Moscow. He spent nearly 3 months there, forging a bond with Stalin, but the friendship soon soured. Over the decades, the relationship has swung back and forth, shaped by rivalry, ideology, and geography. They share a 3,400-kilometer border, and history has shown both conflict and cooperation. Right now, they appear closer than ever, and what unites them is their opposition to the West. Asked how the Ukraine has influenced this rapprochement, Cunan stresses that China has watched events with caution. For Beijing, this wasn't really their fight. They were concerned about how it might affect relations with the US and Europe. But as the war unfolded, they focused on how the West reacted, and they drew lessons, especially when thinking about Taiwan. That lesson came quickly. When Russia failed to overrun Ukraine in the early weeks, Cunan says, Beijing took note. It gave China pause. They realized any attempt to move against Taiwan might not be as swift or decisive as they had hoped, and the strong Western response made them reconsider the timing of their ambitions. There is also the question of personal chemistry. Xi Jinping and Vladimir Putin have now met more than 40 times. How important is that relationship? Cunan believes it matters. It's hard to measure, but clearly their bond has helped create new institutions like BRICS and forged alliances built on shared views of authoritarian rule and strongman politics. It's not decisive, but it greases the wheels. The image of Xi, Putin, and North Korea's Kim Jong-un together at Beijing's recent parade was a powerful statement. Cunan explains, it signaled an axis of authoritarian states. It's about showing the world that they can stand up to Western hegemony. China is presenting itself as a global player, rallying autocrats and non-aligned nations to its side. For further insight, analyst Klaus Sun of the American Orr Institute for Chinese Studies points to trade data. It is very clear, he says, we are seeing China supplying these components, especially dual-use goods, to Russia's war machine. He cites exports ranging from integrated circuits to aerospace equipment, telecommunications hardware, and semiconductors. Since the invasion, the trend is upward. The data shows a surge. Sun emphasizes that bilateral ties have only grown stronger since 2022. We are seeing more strategic partnership, more coordination in international forums like the UN, SCO, and BRICS, he notes. Even as Russia is isolated, Beijing gives it platforms. But he also cautions that this is not a relationship of equals. They are a couple on the same bed with different dreams, he explains. They share an anti-American narrative, but their interests diverge. Russia needs China far more than China needs Russia. As for the possibility of China following North Korea in sending fighters or weapons directly to the battlefield, Sun is doubtful. Beijing will be very cautious about sending any troops to Ukraine, he says. Material support is one thing, direct involvement is another. So what about their much-publicized no-limits partnership? Sun is clear. There are limits. They are not allies. There is no binding treaty. Russia is an indispensable partner for Beijing, but the relationship is pragmatic. China aligns with Moscow where convenient, but maintains independence. And that is the reality shaping this conflict today. A war that began with Russian tanks crossing Ukraine's border has now drawn in a far larger set of actors. Western nations continue to arm Kyiv. North Korea has reportedly dispatched thousands of fighters to support Moscow. And China, while denying direct involvement, is accused of supplying the components that keep Russia's weapons flying. As Zaporizhzhia buries its dead and Ukraine braces for more bombardments, the bigger picture becomes ever clearer. This is no longer just a war between Russia and Ukraine. It is a test of alliances, a clash of worldviews, and a struggle over the future shape of the global order. For Moscow, survival now depends on partners like Beijing. For China, the war is both a laboratory and a lever, a chance to test Western resolve, to deepen its influence, and to present itself as a global power unfazed by Western pressure. And for Ukraine, caught in the middle, it is a daily fight for survival. Against missiles, against drones, and against a partnership between Moscow and Beijing that shows no sign of breaking.